Friends, in our last class, we had discussed the different kinds of land tax systems that were prevalent in India in the 18th century. The Zamindari system, the Mahalwari system, the Rayatwari system. These were in practice in different parts of India. Each of these had their own merits and demerits, drawbacks. But one thing is certain, the British who came to India with an intention of doing trade and commerce here slowly switched on to a system wherein they wanted to colonize India. Their imperialistic set of mind came to the fore. They wanted to establish their supreme authority over the entire country. So, the zamindars, the class of zamindars, they proved to be their agents in India, helping them collect taxes from farmers and passing on a major portion of the same to the British East India Company. So in the country, we had a new class of zamindars getting created. Moneyed people, people who exploited the farmers, people who helped the British earn money, earn wealth. So that's the first aspect we find. Besides the British, we had a section of people from our own land who turned to be zamindars and started exploiting the farmers. Farmers were exploited. Ultimately, the farmers had to lose their land because the zamindars never had any interest in the prosperity of the farmers. Whatever be the situation that the farmers were facing, the zamindars were interested in collecting heavy taxes, passing on a part of it to the British and keeping the rest for themselves. Whether it's the zamindar system or the Mahalwari system or later Rayatwari system, the zamindars were playing an important role. In the Rayatwari system, the zamindars started giving loans to the farmers whenever required. Whatever farmer produced was not enough to pay the taxes to the British because the famine, the drought, the natural disasters, the plague, the flu, the smallpox, all these made the farmers in the country get exploited. They suffered. They were growing rice and wheat for their substantial surveillance. But the British forced them to grow jute, indigo, and cotton. They were pressurizing them. They were threatening them. And people, especially in the northern part, like those of the states of Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Assam, West Bengal, they had to switch over to either indigo or jute. So when the famine hit them, they did not have anything to eat. The farmers, they had to pay the taxes, whatever be the condition. They did not grow anything. They did not have food for themselves. Whatever crops they had grown, it failed. Their situation they faced was miserable, and lots of farmers they had to commit suicide. Most of them they just suffered without any food and breathed their last. It is said in 1943 when famine had struck these states, it had struck the entire country no doubt, but in these states, West Bengal alone, 40 lakh farmers died. 40 lakh farmers in 1 year. The zamindars too had to mortgage their lands to the British to pay taxes. Otherwise, they will not be able to continue as zamindars. They will not be able to exercise their rights. So not only farmers, at times even the zamindars started suffering. So the agricultural sector became commercialized. Farmers had to grow the raw materials required by the industries in Britain, in Europe. So whatever subsistence farming that existed in India, that got nullified. Farmers used to grow food for themselves. They used to somehow survive. But now the question was not there. They were not growing food at all. They were growing commercial crops in order to feed the mills in England. That's why we say agriculture sector in India became commercialized. Farmers were forced to grow raw materials for industries in England. The money lenders in India became strong. It was another new class of Indians who started putting efforts to become stereotypes of the British. They used to wear their dress, they used to keep vehicles, move around, lead a lavish life, and enjoy exploiting the Indian farmers. So the money lenders, whatever be the situation it be, they started becoming strong year after year. Now we will move on to the modern education system. How did it start? When did the British think of strengthening the basic education system in India? What for that was? These aspects we will attend to. The first Governor General's name that comes to our mind when we discuss this aspect is of Warren Hastings. He facilitated modern education. He felt the East India Company needs clerks, accountants, managers, and you can't bring people from Europe to look into all these aspects. They have to be drawn from the writ large in India. And in order to communicate with the British, they needed English. So English was required. The other one was mathematics. They should be add, calculate, and work out. So the British decided to start schools wherein English and mathematics would be taught to Indians in order to make them instant clerks in the British East India Company offices. When they took up this task, in India we had the traditional system. Madrasas were there, which had been started by the Mughals, madrasas. Maulvis were educating. On the other hand, the Hindus had schools in their temples, Veda, Upanishads, recitation of mantra, Sanskrit, the local languages, mathematics. These were being taught by the schools which were prevailing in the Indian temples. But there was nothing which you can call it as universal. The common man did not get education. There was no universalization of education. This has to be borne in mind. So people of lower classes, lower castes, they did not have the needed scope to study, to have formal education. 1792, Jonathan Duncan, he starts a Sanskrit college in Benares. He was interested in making people learn more and more Sanskrit. He starts. Charles Grant, he said, we have to universalize British education in India. As many people as possible, get them enrolled, teach them English, so the ruling British will have the communication bridge with the Indians. So administration turns to be easy. It goes systematic. Charles Grant, he put forth his viewpoint in this connection. The one whom we have to remember a lot is Lord William Bentinck. Lord William Bentinck, he planned, he proposed, and he put lot of efforts to see that English is strengthened in India. English is taught in the new schools that the British had started here. Lord Macaulay, one of the English gentlemen who had sound education in English literature, English philosophy, English education, he laid a strong base for introducing modern education in India. English medium was English. Subjects were being taught in English. So English medium schools had to be started. He also proposed establishment of universities. A new class of Indians have to be created. It was also said, these new class of Indians, the British were feeling, they should be Indians in body, but they should be British in their ability to think, be creative, and the intellect should be that of the British. See, this throws light on the kind of superiority complex the British had in their mind. They always thought Indians are inferior. They are no good. They are fit to be ruled. They are fit to be slaves. They can only support and serve the British, but they will not be able to rule the country or the land for themselves. This set of mind the British had made them very strong. Mentally they were strong. They always felt we are superior to Indians. And Indians as such, they had the inferior set of mind in them. We are here only to be slaves. Now once the British education started here, automatically the Indians too started thinking on the lines of the British, learning the Western philosophy, Western logic, Western education. A new cadre of Indians came up who started thinking in a new style. Here, Lord Dalhousie established universities in Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. So 3 British universities came up in the Indian soil. Charles Wood's Commission report of 1854, it stressed on universalization of education in India. Let people be given the required minimum education, Charles Wood's Commission said. Now, modern education system, that had got established by this time, it had an impact on the Indian masses. What's the impact of the British education? The British education, as I said, it was able to develop modernity among Indians. It's not just copying British. The new set of creative mind, knowing the philosophy of the West and trying to build up a theme for Indians in the Indian soil. The secularist attitude, secularism, democratic attitudes, rationality, with all these nationalism, loving your own country, because India was in pieces. There were more than 200, 250, 300 kingdoms in India, each behaving, functioning in their own style. So a lot of Indians started thinking we should have a nationalistic spirit. If some of these countries in Europe can become independent, free, united, nationalistic in spirit, why should we not be? Integrity. Let it be one integrated piece, one integrated land. So local languages and literature too, they received impetus. Even though some of the Indian youth started learning English, they developed a love for our own basic literature too. So literature, Indian local languages too got impetus. And some of the British too took a lot of interest in seeing that local languages too are developed along with English. So you can't think and find a resolve for all these viewpoints at one plane. You have the example of Reverend Kittle. Kittle came to India and with the help of hundreds of Kannada Pandits in India, he develops Kittle's dictionary. It's a voluminous dictionary in Kannada. He was a German. He came and settled in Mangalore. So, many British and Europeans, they did a lot to develop our local languages too. Periodicals started, journalism, it had its prosperity, scrutiny of British policies. Till then we were just accepting whatever the British said. Now we started analyzing, debating those points and finding out what is truth, what's right and what is not. Critical opinions we started coming out with criticism, innovative ways of thinking. Why should it not be like this? Why should it be like this alone? Religious and social reform movements started in India. Many social reformers came up and they started educating the Indian public. What should it be? What are the loopholes? What are the changes that should accrue? What changes can we bring in India's national life? Unless we strengthen ourselves, we will not be able to face the Western authority to fight for our progress and improvement. So with this, we close this particular subunit, and in the next video we will discuss about the law, the constitutional development of India. Thank you.